Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be showing you a deep dive demonstration of Jira Service Management. Today's session will be recorded, so please feel free to rewatch, share it with others when we send it out afterwards. We're also going to be taking questions. Feel free to put questions into the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to speak up. We'll allow time at the end for questions as well. Before we dive into the actual demo, I'm going to do a brief slide deck just to give you an overview of Atlassian for anyone who may not be familiar with Atlassian and Jira Service Management. Stratacom is your host today. My name is Laura Walker. I'm the Director of Business Development here. Stratacom was founded in 1997 as an enterprise ITSM consultancy. We are currently a Platinum Atlassian partner specialized in ITSM. We have a large consulting team all over the US and we work with clients all over the globe. Big focus for us for the past year has been migrating our Sharewell customers to Jira Service Management. A lot of people are familiar with Jira as a DevOps solution. They've heard of it. I think the latest statistic is 80% of companies are using Jira for something or another. But Jira as a product is owned by a company called Atlassian. Atlassian was founded in Sydney, Australia in 2002. They've got over 8,000 employees worldwide, over 700 partners. They've got a huge marketplace full of apps that extend Jira's flexibility, 250,000 plus customers, and they're currently in a significant amount of the Fortune 100 or Fortune 500, about 80% of customers there. So Jira Service Management isn't quite as well known as some of the other vendors just because it's newer to the market. They started developing about 7 or 8 years ago, but they've been doing a lot of development on it, and it's one of the fastest growing platforms out there, now competing head to head with ServiceNow. You may have seen a report we sent out from Forrester showing that ServiceNow and Atlassian are really the two dominating vendors right now in the ITSM industry. And this chart shows where they're placed for Jira Service Management as an ITSM solution specifically. So you can see that they're a stronger strategy than ServiceNow and up in that leader quadrant. So some of the things we like about JSM, in addition to all the free stuff that's included, which I'll show you on the next slide, is all the things you can do beyond IT. So one of the buzzwords right now is enterprise service management, not just IT service management. So with JSM, you have access when you buy the platform to a lot of different templates that'll bring that service management functionality to other teams such as HR, facilities, legal, and so forth. What's included with Jira Service Management? So it includes all major modules, including asset management. A lot of vendors out there charge for asset management, but that's something that's included, including asset discovery if you don't have a discovery tool or you're looking for a new one. It also includes an integration with Microsoft Teams and Slack. Recently released was a virtual agent, which is AI capabilities for user base. Built-in CMDB with robust discovery. You may have heard of OpsGenie. It's a big competitor of PagerDuty for network monitoring, alerting, mass notification. That comes included. It's also got a native mobile app for iOS and Android. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, 300 plus templates that'll get you functionality really quickly. Quick snapshot here of some of the well-known customers across the globe that are using Jira Service Management, it's their ITSM tool. And with that, I'm going to conclude my short little sales pitch. I hope that gives you a good understanding of Atlassian, who they are, their presence here. And I would like to turn it over to our principal Jira Service Management consultant who leads our JSM implementation practice, Bill Renfro. He's going to be showing you through the tool. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in there. Another option you have would be to use the raise your hand feature. We'll also have questions at the end of today's session, which we are recording.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. So we're going to go through Jira Asset Management a little bit at the end. Laura was talking about that. But we have about an hour, really about 50 minutes if we include some time for questions at the end. So I want to get through a lot of stuff. And so I'm going to skip certain things like backend functionality for the most part, like how do you set stuff up. I do cover some of that typically in demos, but today we're not going to go there. But let's just start with some terminology. When we talk about Atlassian, their best known product is Jira Software, which is of course used in the DevOps world quite a bit. And they use the concept of projects there. In the Jira Software world, a project is something that has a finite time length, right? You start a project in maybe June, you're done by August. concept of projects exists in Jira Service Management as well, but they're not a finite time of length. There are shared work areas for people with common goals, usually with a department or a support organization or something like that. And that's where all of our issues exist and where people see things. We're going to go through, I think, and start where our customers start. So typically, we have our customers come to a portal, right? You can see I have a straightforward portal here. You got some suggested knowledge articles and things that they can go to. If that doesn't work, I don't see knowledge that works for me. I can go in and look at just some easy categories of stuff, right? So I'm going to go into common requests and I'm just going to say, hey, I just need help. My computer's not working. And this is a very common, straightforward, vanilla sort of IT support request. So it has a couple pieces of information at the top. It'll say, what am I having trouble with? So I'll say my device. And now you notice the screen changed. That's because we have a very dynamic form builder behind this. Depending on what I choose, different things pop up. I came out of the Sharewell CSM world most recently, and the form builder there, while powerful, was rather annoying. So the form builder in here is really nice. So what type of device do I have? I'll just choose my desktop. Atlassian's got a good sense of humor, so they put that in there, but I could put in my asset tag if I know it, and I can just summarize the issue, and I can send that into the help desk. Right. So now it's created my ticket. I see the information here. I can see the current status. It's in submitted. Maybe this isn't something really urgent. I could turn notifications off if I wanted to just by clicking this, or I could go the other way and escalate it if it's been a couple days. Or if I figured out the problem on my own, I could cancel it or resolve it. But let's also say it's a bad problem and I can't work. And my boss wants to know about this. So I can just add my boss to this ticket. Elena is now added. And now on any action on the ticket, she will also get notified. And we call this a request participant. So it's a person who's added to it. They can comment on the issue if they want, and it just keeps them in the loop as this ticket is worked. And I've had to change this demo multiple times. And today I'm going to demo something for you that I have not actually demoed before. So let's go back to our help center. I'll go to the service desk. Atlassian just recently released their virtual service agent. So I can go in here, and as you can see, this is literally so new that there's no bells or whistles. I'm say, hey, I need a holiday schedule for next year. I'm trying to plan vacation. In the background, what this is doing is it's searching for intents. It's trying to figure out what I'm doing. We're going to be doing a longer webinar on this next week, but I can say, hey, yeah, I'm looking for the corporate 2025 holidays. Guess what? We have offices in 2 states. So I'm going to choose California. Let's just say, hey, here's the California holiday list. And I can open that up, take a look at the knowledge base article, be like, this is exactly what I needed to know. So I can go back here. I can say, do you need more help? I'll say no. So that's something I built to do that. I'm just going to clear that conversation. Now I'm going to do something completely different. I don't know if any of you are Doctor Who fans, but I grew up in the 70s and 80s and very close to the Canadian border. So I took what TV I could get. So I need help troubleshooting my TARDIS. Now, this is not something I built. I do have a knowledge base article that I created, and it went out, it looked at all the available intents I have in the system, and it said, but none of those really match. So I'll go check the knowledge base. It said, hey, I do have a knowledge base article that matches that. And again, it's here. And so the Atlassian AI will, over time, go through your knowledge base and give and learn over time. And it's also based off of user permissions. So if you have segmented your knowledge where some people can see stuff and some people can't, it takes that into consideration too. We are just barely scratching the surface with this. This is really new. Again, we're going to do a full webinar on all this stuff next week. I'm going to keep moving on from there for right now. But Laura will drop the link for that webinar into the chat at some point during this conversation. All right. So let's return to my support request from a moment ago. So as you can see, I just put this one in. and I can open it. So I'm back in the agent view or the customer view, but now I'm going to go take a look at this in the agent, which is a bit different. It's a bit more complex. So I think everything here is really easy to understand. In my center section, you can see that I have my fan is too loud. All the information that came in from the request is here. We've got the requester's name up here on the top, and our initial status is waiting for support. Nothing has happened with this yet. It's a brand new ticket. I can go down and see that, oh, hey, they added somebody as a participant. So I probably should keep an eye on this. Why get categorized as critical? I don't know, but I didn't do that. Let's change it to a medium. And now I have my SLA stuff up here. SLAs are highly configurable in this tool, and you can use business time or real time. We haven't found any instance of where we haven't been able to make it work for customers. They're pretty broad and pretty adaptable. Another feature that I really like in JSM is the ability to change things for yourself. Typically, in almost every system, you're like given the fields in the order that the software designer thought you should. But it's a little bit different in here. I can have pinned fields. So I can unpin this and it goes down. Or if I want, I can pin it and move it back up. Actually, click it. There we go. And it should go back up to the top. And I can do that with any of the stuff in here. And also, we have the more fields. So if a field doesn't get filled out, it just gets moved to this empty section at the bottom. So if I know if it's in there, it doesn't have any information. Therefore, it's pretty irrelevant to the problem at hand. So if I go to work this ticket now, I'm going to go ahead and move it to in progress. A little pop-up screen. I can assign it to myself. Anything I put in here will go out to the customer. I could do an internal comment as well if I had something confidential I wanted to say. This guy's a hothead, so be careful. But as I'm working this ticket, we are progressing through a workflow. So you can see I have all my different ticket statuses. So each status is an object with properties. And every one of these lines between statuses is called a transition. And transitions also have properties. And this is how we enforce behavior. So on one of these transitions, which you'll see in a moment, like resolved, we require some fields to be filled out where they don't have to be before that. Or we could require an approval to as we go through this. So let's keep working this ticket. And I can see when I scroll down here, it'd be like, hey, there's 15 knowledge base articles that might apply. And I could just grab something that makes sense. You're just going to send this one. So I've now linked that article into my body of my response. And I'm a big fan of efficiency. If I have to do something more than once, I want to not do it. I don't have to. And JSM has something called canned responses. So I've created one here called relevant knowledge. You can see it's got some variables like the issuer reporter name. I can just insert this in here and say, hey, William, this should solve your problem. And I could save that and send it back on. So now I've got the issue, sent the knowledge article. I think I can resolve it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right. So if I hit resolve this issue, guess what happens? I can't close this or resolve it until I actually fill some information out here. So that's the only field that's required on here. I could do multiples. I could do just about any combination you'd want to. And then I can finish out the two. Now that is the most simple kind of ticket. When we raise those issues in JSM, and the correct terminology is issues, we hope that our help desk has 80% of ours are simple, fast, quick tickets, right? That's what we all shoot for. But we also know there's a lot of really realistic situations where that's not going to happen. And we had one customer, and I'm going to walk you through what we did for them, that had a pretty complex sort of situation in their HR process. So I'm going to go into the HR portal here, and we're going to just go straight to employee onboarding and offboarding. So the customer had some rules, and the rules made a lot of sense. So I'm going to go ahead and add Harry Barber. We'll say that he is coming on board on the 14th. We'll fill out some more information. I'll put the region, office, and the employee type in here. We'll put him in finance and make him a specialist. And he's just going to be an accountant. Does he need equipment? Yes. who's the manager, make Adam as manager. I could add some additional information in here if I wanted to, and then I will submit this. Now, the situation and the process that this company had was that an HR caseworker would take on this new onboarding request. They would contact this person who they would contact Harry Barber. Typically, the information to contact him or her would be in here. And they would set them up in in their learning system to go through their HR sensitivity and IT security training. And until that happened, nothing could happen. Nothing else was supposed to happen for the employee. But once that did happen, we would go in and say security training pass. Everything in JSM is browser based. Almost everything you don't have to hit save on. There are some exceptions. If I go change the title of this, I do have to actually check the little checkbox. I'm not going to do that. What is happening in the background as I marked that is we have an automation engine. And that automation engine has gone through and create linked tickets for different groups. So you can see facilities is out as a job to create a workspace for Harry. The security people got a ticket to create the new accounts, and then telephony of cell phone, and finally the hardware people create an image of laptop. In real life, we might have 12 tasks for an onboarding, and that's not uncommon. I've seen that. But I think you understand the process. And so as the HR caseworker is working this, we can make it so the ticket can't be closed until all of these are closed. But facilities people are usually out and about, right? So they might call and say, hey, I got that workspace set up. You can mark that as done. So I can just do that right from here. So the resolution, it's done, and we can just close it. And the same thing on down the ticket until we get all of the tasks associated and so on and so forth. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on and not work all the way through this ticket. But if you have questions at the end or you want to see more, I'll certainly stay on and we can do that. All right, I'm going to go back to the IT project now.
Hey, Bill, we actually did have one that just came in. Out of the box, can a ticket be created on behalf of someone else?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the field's hidden in here, but let's just go take a look at one of these. So if you're in the portal, you can do it. I think it's hidden right now, though. I can show that, I think, afterwards. But essentially, there's another field. There's reporter and then there's created on behalf of. So we just drop that in here. If you are an admin in here, all you do is hit configure and you can grab any field that's not in there already and just go ahead and drop it right in. Or you want to get rid of it, just take it out. It is super easy to work with. I typically spend more time on this in demos than I'm going to today, but I just want to show quickly how some things work. So on the back end, all of these things that our customers see are issue types and request types. So issue types are basically the ITIL process areas. So change, incident, problem, service request with approvals. We've got a few more in here, tasks and subtasks, but very easy to understand. Request types are specific examples of these. So we have a guest Wi-Fi account is a service request. Get IT help is a service request. And we have some incidents defined down lower. You have some problem types. There's only one problem type actually, and there's changes. In other software I've worked in, and I've worked in pretty much every one of the top platforms, adding a new ticket type could be quite a hassle. In Sharewell CSM, for example, when I worked in that, even the most simple one, if it was new, was a multiple hours project, could be days if it was really complex. But in here, let's say that I wanted to add a new bug report. I could go to request types. I can create a request type from a template. And this template number keeps growing all the time. And I can go look at IT, look at these templates. I'll select investigative problem. We're going to change the name. Let's call it investigative bug. And we're going to create a service request with that. And we'll put it in the common request portal group. Now it's actually live now in the portal, but I want to go one better with this. So this is what we call a screen. It's the available fields laid out for me. This is what you saw when I was working the ticket in the technician view, but we do have a much better editor. So I can go to forms And I'm going to create a form, but I'm also going to create that from a template. And I happen to know there is a bug report form. So I can select this bug report form out of the templates. It's pretty good, actually. It's got a whole bunch of which browser are you in, what's going on with it, some stuff just for engineering. This editor I'm in is pretty powerful. It can do a lot of things, show and hide sections. I can also go to the settings, attach this to the request type that I just made, save the changes again, and back in my portal, it's literally live and it has the form, it's laid out, it's ready to use. Now, all of this, you would go through a change control process in most places, obviously, but that's how easy it is to add things into the system of templates. And that's a big selling point for a lot of people. They've become frustrated with other systems where adding things is really a hassle. Let's go back to the IT support project. We've talked about service requests. We've talked about complex ones and simple ones. The other process areas in IT are, of course, incident, change, and problem. So I'm going to create an incident. Say we're having a help desk and or I'm working on the help desk. I get a call. There's an outage or email. Say it's 0365. It's not responding. What services are affected? Let's say infrastructure services. So now in this incident, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I was messing around in my demo environment and created an automation that was marking things as critical because I was testing alerts and I apparently forgot to turn it off, which is why everything's getting marked critical. So there's always something that goes wrong in demos, and today it did. But here I have my incident, and it is now it's a big problem. I can just go mark this as a major incident. It's marked here as a major incident, right? Now in this workflow, all of these transitions, I can make these behave differently depending on what kind of parameters are in here. So as a major incident, I can make different fields required and all of that. But as I'm working this incident, I would move it to work in progress. You'll notice that where's my so this is infrastructure services. It's highlighted here in the middle. And there's now two incidents open with it. If I go look at my services and I go look at infrastructure, you can see I have stakeholders down here, right here. Stakeholders will get notified anytime a ticket is opened against their service. They can also comment on the ticket, and they do not need a license to comment on the ticket, which is a really nice feature. It's worth noting that if you are just an approver, approving things like changes, you also do not need a license. And that's a big difference between JSM and BMC and ServiceNow and others. It's really nice to have these secondary people who need to be involved, kinda, but they don't really work in the system, not need a license. All right. So again, back in my ticket, I would work this incident through its life cycle. We'd investigate, we'd find the source problem. Eventually, we'd resolve it. I think everybody's done enough incident management that they understand that process. Let's look at another way you could be having a bad day on the help desk. Let's say there's a different kind of outage. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to create another incident. Probably going to create all of these as critical. So that's my bad. And my phone is already ringing. I can see the queue is 5 people deep. I can hit this little create another issue down or create another issue down here. And by the way, whoever has to be on behalf of before, you can see it here, right? So I put Greg in here. Greg's one of my coworkers who typically helps with demos. But when I check this little box down here, it doesn't take the screen away. And we would just go on down the line, right? We could create as many of these as we needed to. But at this point in the IT world, we typically know we have a problem. And I mean that in the true ITIL sense of the world. We have a major failure that needs to have a root cause analysis. So I'm going to create a problem investigation record. So I'll just go into here, get rid of my little pop-up. I'll go to problem. And again, Atlassian tries to keep these screens very simple and fast, but say SAP outage on 10/2. I would probably choose my service at this point, but I'm just gonna keep going forward. Now, almost always when you're creating a problem record, it's a placeholder. because you want the problem created, but you don't do the investigation at that exact time. And in fact, I know that there's issues I need to link to this problem because they were caused by this. So I'm gonna click my issue and I'll say SAP, to search for this. Show me any that are currently open and not attached. So I've got my couple of tickets attached there. Everything's fixed. We go back. I'm going to put this under review. Assign it to whoever the investigator is. In this case, I'll say me. And we'll start filling out the rest of what we actually would have done here. So the reason it was a high impact incident, the urgency, it's pretty critical. SAP was used by a lot of people. Root cause, just say it was a router failed and we did a hardware replacement. Now, I don't know how many of you have actually done problem management. Almost all of the work is outside of the tool, and then the tool is just documenting what actually happened. So now I've documented everything. I can just put this through the rest of its life cycle and then eventually complete it. As you remember, we had two linked issues down here. The automation engine that sits behind JSM is actually really good. And what it's doing in the background is it actually is copying the resolution over to these tickets and just closing them. So now everything is closed. I don't have to go and deal with all those tickets. You can do quite a few. It'll close all the linked tickets, and we can set that up for anything, whether it's a major incident or a whole bunch of tasks on a checklist. The automation engine is actually really easy to understand. All right. I've talked about incident, I've talked about problem, and we've talked about service requests. We have not yet talked about change, which means we also have not yet talked about approvals. So I use an example from a company that I worked with for years, and they did quarterly service server patching. And they were also under SOX audit rules. So they were complex. So I'm going to go create a change record, choose which kind of change on my list here. We'll just request a normal change. And I've done this enough that my type ahead works. We'll do, Q3 2020. And for most companies, the process is you submit a change so you can get the change number and do a few things with that outside of the system. We usually had to email the auditors and give them a heads up saying, hey, this will be submitted, just so you know. So we've got a change type. We have the normal ITIL kinds in here, standard, normal, emergency. Some companies use freeze period. Target Corporation, for example, absolutely wants no changes to its website from basically the end of October through the holiday season because they make so much money off it. So that's one example. People that would use that type, it would generally need additional approvals. What is the impact? It's significant. We're taking down a number of servers. Urgency, it's medium. It's planned. We don't need to do this if there's some reason. Risk is low. It's a planned, normal thing we do. And the reason is maintenance. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about, but maybe you saw on the side, was we do have our knowledge base. And our knowledge base can be used any number of different ways. So if I search for plan, I have my patching, rollback, and test plans already documented in here. I can go up here to my little toolbar. I can say link confluence content. We'll just search plan. So I'll attach my patching test plan, the actual implementation plan, and the rollback plan. So being able to reuse this kind of content would have been excellent when I was working with that customer back quite a while ago. So I've got my change all filled out now. It is ready to be submitted for approval. The change workflow is a bit different than the other stuff. All right. You can see I have this authorized step right there in the middle. And there are properties on the authorized step that basically say which group to send the change to for approval. It is dynamic. It can be based off of me and my manager. It could be based off of a defined group in the system. I'm going to go ahead and send that for approval. And let's see what's actually happening on the back end. So when we go look at workflows in here, how I scroll past it, it's like every single time. And I see my change workflow. And I'm just going to edit this because it gives us a better view of the system. On my authorized step, you can see it says include approval step. And when I hit edit on this, I can set how many people, where does the approvers come from? It can come off of a field in the system, like the approver groups. And then it tells us what transition to follow if it's approved or declined. And we can exclude people, like the reporter and the assignee generally should not be approving. So you can see if it's declined, it follows this transition, the status is declined. And if it's approved, it's awaiting implementation. All right. So going back to my change, it's now waiting for approval. Now, because it's the demo system, I can just approve this myself. So I'll add myself. If I can spell my own name, which apparently seems to be difficult today, I would actually see it like this. If I was just an approver and didn't work on the system, I would have gotten an email and I could come in here. So you get full details of the change. You can go take a look at everything and then approve it. And when I go back in here, it should be approved any second. And now it automatically went to awaiting implementation. And then I could work the change through its life cycle. I think everybody understands that the work with change is almost always on the front end before the tasks are completed. Okay. We've got a bunch of stuff we could talk about and talk through. I'm going to take a moment and look at alerts because you may have seen it on this right side, left side. So alerts are something that used to be called Ops Genie in the system. As of about the end of October, all Atlassian systems will be converted to the format you're looking at now. This is the first time I've demoed this in this format because this is another thing that's new. The Ops Genie product has been folded in completely. So if I go here and I look at alerts, I see a list of alerts out here. These are all closed. We'll just look at the open ones. And I don't have any alerts. Where do alerts come from? Ops Genie, even though it's folded in here, has a whole giant list of integrations. It can integrate into just about any major system. And I'm going to actually show you the list of integrations that exists out there. So go to my configuration, go to the operations section and integrations. If I want to add an integration, let's say I want to monitor Azure OMS. So I'm going to just search for that. I have these predefined connectors out here. I'll click on one, we'll call it OMS. I could make it default to team if I wanted to here, but I'm not going to. And then for every one of those integrations you saw on that list, the many hundreds of them, it literally gives you the full instructions on how to set this up to create alerts in your system so that your technicians can be notified. So this is complex. I'm not going to talk through it, but almost all of them are some combination of an API key, a REST API URL, or something like that. But there's also very simple ones. And as you can see, I have an email integration set up here. So tale as old as time, there's an email address, which is this one. And any email sent to this address by some kind of outside monitoring system will create an alert. So we'll say SAP outage detected. And when I send that in, back in my to open, so as you can see, this came in, it has not been acknowledged. What does that mean? In here, in the alerts and in the operations section, we have teams. So the platform support team, for example, has me and Elena. We have an on-call schedule that sits behind this. It's completely configurable. And we can define on-call schedules so that when this comes in, you can see the schedule here is defined. It'll notify whoever's currently on call. And as you can see right now, Elena is on call. So now if I go back to my alerts, there is a pretty robust. So this came in a little while ago. As you can see, it's open. It has not been acknowledged. So I can either acknowledge it in here, I can acknowledge it in an app, or if we go look in here, it should have created a ticket in JSM. Or I can manually create a ticket in JSM, or I could link it to an issue. Point being, it's got a very robust monitoring system. And it has something else too, called heartbeats. So this alert was created by an external tool monitoring and then sending in something through an email. That could have been an API call. It could have been a number of other things. There's a multitude of ways to create alerts, but it's not proactive, right? So if we go look at this team here and I look at their operations, we have heartbeats. And a heartbeat is a different kind of animal. So let's say you had a backup process that runs every day. At the very end of your backup script, you could put an API call saying, "Hey, I checked in, I ran, I'm good." And that's basically what heartbeats are. So instead of responding to receiving an alert from an outside system, it responds when something does not check in. So if I go look at this, I've got my website, heartbeat, failed to check in. Every one of these comes with a default email. If I go ahead and find that email, no, in reality, you'd probably use an API call, which is all documented and comes with this too, but this is the easiest way to demo it. So I'll send that off. So as this sits here in 10, 15 seconds, we should see it's responsive. The heartbeat has bumped. It's sent in something. Now you can set these intervals for whatever you want. 24 hours would probably be pretty reasonable for a backup job. Maybe you're monitoring a website that's up or down and you would do 15-minute intervals or something and have a cron job that runs on the server. So this would create your alert if it doesn't check in. So as I have that set to 1 minute, at the 1 minute mark, if this doesn't check in, it's going to go ahead and create a new alert. Let's see, wait a minute. Yeah. So this was from earlier today. You can see I closed it out, but this is exactly what happened. And then we can also create an instant in JSM from it. To give you an example, doing a customized demo for a company that we're planning on being 4 hours spread over a couple days. So if there's anything that we've talked about that you want to see more detail on, we are definitely able to do that. But let's just go back and look through a few things that we haven't talked about yet. So along this top bar, we saw projects and we can search in projects, but we have filters too. So I'm going to look at all open issues. Filters allow us to search across many projects. I can save filters and share them with people, but we can also do something really interesting called a filter subscription. So maybe I'm a help desk manager or a help desk supervisor, and every day I want to see all the critical tickets that are open. I want this emailed to me every day at 6 a.m. Or I want all of the admins to get it. Or I have a change advisory board and I want them to get it on 2 days a week, whatever. This is really helpful because you can get information in a proactive way sent to you. All right. We also have dashboards up here. So I'll take a look at my service desk dashboard. I think this is pretty easy to understand. Every one of these little gadgets is configurable. I really like that you can change the size on them too. So if you're not interested in something at the moment, or you can make it full screen, you can of course drill down into these things, right? So that's dashboards. These can be public or they can be private. There are really no secrets in configuring this. It's very straightforward. By the time I got to the meeting, they'd created 6 dashboards. So it's very easy to work with, very intuitive. Creating the dashboard is really easy. Moving across here, we have teams, which we talked about. This is where we define teams and on-call schedules and alerts, etc. Plans is a Jira software thing, and it's not actually relevant to JSM itself. And then we have assets. Laura mentioned that this is included in the system. Most of you are probably using a tool like SCCM or Landsweeper or Intune to detect your assets in your network. All of those can be integrated into here. Atlassian is releasing a data manager tool, which is actually going to improve that import process and do things like duplication removal if you're using multiple data sources and rule enforcement. So again, another place where they're adding features. But inside asset, we have schemas. I can create a schema pretty easily. There's only 3 templates at this point in time, but I'm sure there will be more. If we take a look at IT employee assets, for example, we have a catalog of supported devices. If I look at the details on this laptop, I can see, all right, it's assigned to Mitch Davis. We know when it was purchased. We know when the warranty expires. I can actually see that there's a laptop issue or a case open against it right now. The inverse is true as well. I can see that there's that laptop. Every one of these has an object graph where you can see everything that's related. The assets module will create all of this structure when you import from any kind of source. So it's actually really smart in that sense. Assets also includes something called asset discovery, which is a fairly basic network scanning tool. So this is our company's instance of our company's Atlassian instance. As you can see, we've got 8,000 objects in here. Go down to our company repository. We have many devices, many hosts, but if you go look at where's host, all of this was created with the asset discovery tools. If I look at the linked objects on Big Dog, which is a physical server, I can see there's patches, applications, drives, etc. So whatever information you have, we can bring in. If you don't have anything, we can install asset discovery and get through that. We have multiple ways to do that. And with the advent of data manager here in the next week or so, it's going to even improve more. Laura told me I had an hour and I'm 6 minutes short and I haven't checked the questions. So I'm going to do that really quick. Is there a way to import the modules? All right. Yeah, we actually have, for anybody who doesn't know, we were a Sharewell partner for a long time. And we have developed a toolkit from bringing data out of Sharewell into JSM, whether that's instance changes, problems, custom modules, or whatever. Typically, what we do, if you have a completely homegrown thing, for example, we worked with a company that made a legal module in Sharewell. We would just make a legal module or legal project in JSM and then bring the data over with our API tools we've created. And so what you see when I was in this IT service management, everything in there came pre-built. But if I created a legal one, let's just go look at a legal project. This has a whole, this is a work management, my bad. So here's the legal service desk one. And as you can see, it's a different look and feel. It's got less stuff over on the left side, got a bunch of the request types are all different, right? We would have questions for legal, like all these kind of totally different features and items. And that all comes pre-built in these templates. So I can spin up a new project for somebody, like a different department, and have them at least testing the product to see if it works for them in a very short period of time. And in the case of the question where you've developed custom Sharewell modules, we know Sharewell really well. If you have those custom modules, those are really on a case by case basis, but we haven't run into anyone yet that we couldn't convert and make it work for them. Are there any other questions? And by the way, I will stay on longer if anybody wants to go down in the weeds with any portion of what we looked at, or if there's any additional questions. It's really just up to the audience here. In the meantime, while I'm waiting, I will say that I do appreciate everyone attending today and taking a look. We are evangelists of the product. It is a really good product. Is it a fit for everybody? No, of course not. We have found situations where the university space has been tough for us, for example, but there are no instances I've seen where we couldn't make the product work well for people who are using competing systems right now. But can you export content? Yes, you can. There's multiple ways to export content. The simplest is to go into a filter, do whatever search you want, and then just hit the export issues button. You have many different versions. If you look at any of these forms, we can actually, when people fill these out, save a PDF of the form as an attachment to the ticket, which you can then like email out, or you could just have for reference, or it's really nice because then you get that done automatically and you don't have to go through separate actions to export content. Are there connectors for Power BI? Yes, there are. We've run into two different situations. One is that we run into companies that have a group of Power BI people who are skilled at building connectors and just build it on their own. There's also some off the shelf connectors in the Atlassian marketplace that we recommend to people because they're cheap, they're really easy to set up, and it just works.
All
And give
right.
this
That looks like the end of our questions.
Thank you everybody for your time today. I appreciate it.
I hope you can join us next week to dig into more of the AI features and the virtual assistant. If you have following questions or if you want a personalized demo session for your team where we can interact, answer questions, we're happy to do that as a next step. Or if you'd like to software quote to understand the pricing, let us know. We're happy to help with that as well. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Appreciate you for joining. Bye bye.